this is not a drill, right? This is not an exercise. This is something everybody needs to be awake to and think critically about. And these conversations that I've had, they can go off in all kinds of different directions. But the underlying point here is that the CBDC, the central bank digital coin, is coming in one way, shape, or form. It's coming. Whether they roll it out just as an interbank payments network first and then trickle it down into retail, who knows? Really, who knows? Whether they use it as a way for you to claim your social security payments, and that's the carrot that they're going to dangle for people to enter into their central bank digital currency scheme. Again, who knows? That they could do both of those very easily.
Hello guys, welcome once again to Bitcoiner, the podcast for Bitcoiners from El Salvador and to the world. Today we have the great pleasure to talk with Dan Prince. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me on. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. So I know you're very well known, especially in the Bitcoin world, but as I mentioned before we started recording the podcast, this podcast is meant for Spanish speakers, the Spanish speaker communities. So maybe they don't know your background, and maybe they don't know more about the Spanish speakers. So one of my goals is that all of you guys that are working in the Bitcoin space provide us a little bit about your background and what you're currently doing, because it's really important, especially in my country, El Salvador, to get this information. So maybe we could start the podcast talking a little bit about your background. So where are you from? And we will continue on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And apologies for not being able to speak Spanish.
Don't worry.
It's French I can just about handle. I sometimes wish we'd lived in Spain instead of France, because I think the Spanish language might have been a little bit easier to pick up. But hey ho,
Really?
us Bitcoiners do things the hard way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So a little bit about me. Originally from England. I left England in 1999 and moved to Singapore because my work took me there. I just followed the career chances that were opening up to me. I was working in financial markets. I worked in foreign exchange as a foreign exchange brokerage on currency options desks. So basically, my job was to sit between the world's biggest banks and execute deals for them when they were trying to exchange fiat currencies such as euros or dollars or Japanese yen. And before that, actually, in the mid-90s, when I started my career, we still had the peseta and we still had the Deutschmark, and the euro hadn't come along. So that was my background in foreign exchange markets. And in 2013, I needed to put a line under that part of my life. I needed to move on. My wife and I, we had 4 kids. I was running on the hamster wheel as fast as you possibly could. And after a 17 or 18-year career, you find yourself in a pretty good position. You've made some good cash. If you've saved well, you should be pretty good. I couldn't figure out how we were getting to the end of each month and still net zero, even though I was working in quote unquote a good paying career. And I just wanted to make a change. And I read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss at the recommendation of a friend of mine. And that just changed my thinking completely. And I became laser-eyed focused on getting out of that corner I'd painted myself into and finding a different way to live and finding a different way to bring up our family. So first thing I had to do was, of course, quit. So quit, threw in the towel, resigned, and my wife and I decided, well, let's travel around the region for 6 to 9 months before, the next chapter, going to find another job, going to find another country to live in. And that actually turned out to be 2.5 years of constant travel with our kids, who were aged 8, 6, and we had 3-year-old twins at the time as well. So we'd sold everything pretty much that we owned and jumped on a plane and started traveling. We were traveling via the sharing economy. We were using home swapping as our accommodation choices, and that just opened up the doors to so many different places and meeting so many different people, and people helping you out and looking after you when you get to their country, and all of those amazing travel stories that you experience when you actually just put yourself out there. So we did that for 2.5 years.
Well,
It's at that point I was falling very, very fast and very deeply into two rabbit holes. One, challenging the education system, because we had our kids out of school and we were home educating, world schooling, it's known as, when you travel with your children. It's just world schooling. There's no curriculum to follow. It's follow the interests of the day and explore the city or town or country in which you find yourself, and use that as the basis for the education and experiential learning. So that was just firing me off in all kinds of different thought patterns as to, well, we grew up under this really constricted education system where you are force fed information and narratives and nationalism. And look where that's got us. We aren't a particularly peaceful globe. Why? If we're supposedly all educated. So that opened me up to perhaps there's a different way to do that. And then because I was without employment for the first time in my whole adult life, I had no monthly income. And that's a very, very scary prospect, and not something easy to deal with. Your monkey mind really starts playing games with you, because, again, you've been programmed to believe, head down at school, you get good grades, you get good job, life's all rosy. Now, all of a sudden, I'm unemployed. We're in a country we've never been before. I've got a wife and 4 kids, and we don't know where we're going to have a roof over our head in a week's time.
Yeah.
So I was really trying to figure out, all right, how do I protect the wealth and the savings that I'd already worked for and spent so long and so much time and energy and so much sacrifice, because you sacrifice yourself, you sacrifice your time to be in an office rather with your brand new baby or with your wife or with your family. And I wanted to protect all of that. So how do I do that? What investments are open to me? Because I'd worked in financial markets, I was kind of privy to the inside information of how do you set up a brokerage account, what forms you have to fill in and fill out, what stocks should I be looking for, what countries should I be looking to invest in, and all of those good things. And I was using several different avenues and diversifying, of course, like, again, you're programmed to do. And then I found, a friend of mine was co-founding Real Vision. Grant Williams was co-founding Real Vision with Raoul Pal at the time, back in 2014. And I was one of the early subscribers there. And I was really enjoying that content. It was an amazing educational platform back in those days. And they started bringing on people to talk about Bitcoin. And I remember a few interviews, one with Wences one with Tur de Meester, and one with Trace Mayer, which just blew my mind again. I was like, whoa, hang on. This thing, Bitcoin, which I'd been ignoring from the minute I'd heard about it whilst I was sat on my brokering desk, brokering deals in fiat currencies to the tune of anywhere from 10 million to $1 billion between HSBC and UBS and Goldman Sachs and, whoever else, right? I dealt with them. And I had completely ignored Bitcoin through my own hubris and ego, because I worked in the real financial markets. I worked with the real money, and somebody had to keep the economy going. And if it weren't for us brokers moving the money around, then the world would collapse. And all of this complete and utter nonsense that you know, this narrative that you get fed when you're sat in these positions. So now I was not constrained by that day to day, and I had time to breathe, and I had time to think, and I had time to reflect, and I had time to read, and I had time to listen, and I had time to learn. And that's when Bitcoin just took off for me. I was like, oh man, how wrong could I have been about this? And since that day, not one day goes by that I haven't thought about it, I haven't read about it, I haven't listened about it, I haven't watched a video about it. Even today, even this morning, I've been watching 3 different podcasts concurrently. Like, there is no end to this rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
It's so deep. And this comes back again. This goes perfectly in line with these 2 rabbit holes that I was descending. Like, how am I learning so much of my own volition? Whereas my whole life up until that point had been, you learn what we tell you to do. Even when you join the workplace, right? You can't learn, you know, organically. You learn by the senior person. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Follow these rules, and then you will make it. Otherwise, you're out. If you do something wrong, you're gone. If you step out, you know, over the line, you're gone. So you were always following. And then before that, obviously, in your university, your college, your school, your high school, your primary school, your even your kindergarten, you know, you're told what to do, where to be, how to do it, why to do it, sit down and shut up. Yeah, here we are. I was 38, I think, at the time. Couldn't stop reading books, couldn't stop reading articles, really in-depth stuff, amazing historical things, writing stuff down, taking notes. I'm like, I'm enjoying this. This is crazy. I can't get enough of this. I couldn't even sleep because it was just running around in my head. Even if I did sleep, I'd be dreaming about it. And that is what true learning is. That's the difference between learning and teaching. And then if you apply that to schools today, what's going on in schools is not learning. What's going on in schools is teaching. And so it's my belief that, you know, if you want to truly live a self-sovereign life, Bitcoin is here now. It's got you financially, but you've got to get your kids out of that state education system too, because otherwise they won't. They will just be slowly conditioned and programmed to march to the beat of the drum of that nation state's agenda. So that was a huge awakening, and I've been working tirelessly in both of those 2 areas ever since then. So the last 8 years, I suppose, certainly in homeschooling as well, where I've hosted a couple of online global summits to talk about homeschooling, world schooling, alternative education. And my book, obviously, Choose Life, is a culmination of how we exited the fiat nightmare hamster wheel, what the thoughts that were going on through our minds at the time, the dark times we faced, the barriers we faced, the challenges, the positives, the negatives. And there's a whole chapter in there about alternative education and taking your kids out of school as well, which in some countries is even illegal, which raises another red flag. But that's me up until this point. And now for the last 3 years, I've been running a Bitcoin podcast called Once Bitten, where I have had the pleasure of interviewing over 300 people from all over the world, from all different walks of life, not just the quote unquote well-known, famous celebrity Bitcoiners, but somebody who might even have 10 followers on Twitter. You know, that these stories are just, if not more as important than these than those of Michael Saylor, perhaps, because Bitcoin is for everybody, and every story is going to resonate with someone in a different way, but at the same time, inspire them to take perhaps one extra step towards learning about Bitcoin and educating themselves.
Absolutely. Actually, I was thinking while you were speaking that just you mentioned that when you discovered Bitcoin, you even today that you were listening to 3 podcasts, I felt really, really, really identified and related, because it's like I live with 2 roommates, and they're like they're not that in the rabbit hole journey about Bitcoin. They know about Bitcoin, but they're not quite orange pill yet. So that's a work in progress.
Yeah,
but,
it's
but
difficult.
yeah, and the thing is that they always tell me like, but you don't get enough about listening about Bitcoin. It's the same thing. I was like, no, it's not the same thing, because it basically involves everything, involve politics, involve economics, involve education, involves mention anything, and it's somehow it's related, right? So that's why I feel really identified and related about that. And you also mentioned that your podcast, and by the way, I have seen it and I love it, and especially I love that your daughters usually make the first questions, right, about in the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
no, and the thing is that I have a nephew, and he's 3 years old, and my sister wants to. She's already orange pilled. Actually, well, I have mentioned this in another podcast, but she was the one that uh, make me dive deep in the rabbit hole, because I just studied, but the blockchain technology more than the Bitcoin technology in the university. But then my sister, she like in 2019, no, earlier, 2017, she also mentioned Bitcoin, and she is in economics, right? She's business administrator. So, and I was like, I thought it was related to engineering, not to economics, and that's when I started to educating more about Bitcoin, right? And so now she wants to orange pill my nephew. So maybe my question will be like, how do you start orange pilling kids? Because Bitcoin involved everything, but how maybe you can start to orange pill them?
Yeah, very good question. And something every Bitcoiner is trying to figure out for themselves. And there are people building products out there as well, which is great. There's Shamory is the first one that springs to mind. Scott and Mallory Sibley do a great job there. And they're just releasing their plushies, their little Bitcoin monsters for really little kids. They've also written a book called Good Night Bitcoin, which is aimed probably perfect age for your nephew, around 3 years of age.
Cool.
And I have another product, the Shamory game, which your nephew he's going to be too young for that at this stage. Well, maybe not. It's a memory game. So you could play a very little basic memory game with him. They like to play memory games at that age. And you're just flicking over the cards, and it's to mimic the idea of mining, and explaining that in a family and friendly way. And then as you, Bitcoin Rabbi's book. Yeah, it's over there somewhere. Hang on. I've got all these books. One sec. I can hold them
All
up.
right.
Bitcoin for Kiddos as well. Here's one.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Another one for really, really young guys. And this is written by Chris and Frida Bobe. This one is by Michael Karras, the Bitcoin Rabbi. This is another great book
That's so cool.
For little kids. That these are the kinds of books that you just sit your kids or your nephew on your lap, and you just read them, and you just let them
Good
point
night,
at the
Bitcoin.
pictures. Good Night Bitcoin by Scott and Mallory, which is great because it's so approachable for really
Oof,
young kids.
that's
As you can
true.
see, that ring light's getting in the way. Sorry about that.
No.
Um, that's that's a really great way to start. That those three products alone, and there are probably many more out there. So sorry if I'm not shilling everything,
Oh, yeah.
but for kids of that age, for sure, is a good way to do it. For slightly older, you have the game Shamory that I mentioned, and you also
Mhm.
have a game by Scott and Tarley called Hodl Up, which is like a classic kind of big tabletop card game where you're moving
Ah,
things around.
cool.
And yeah, it's very cool. Lots of moving parts in that. So for the curious kind of teenagers that really like to sit down and get into their games, that would be a perfect present. Um, so you just go to hodlup.com and you'll be able to find that. Uh, Otherwise, YouTube videos. The Tuttle twins have just released a series of really short, sharp, excellent cartoon videos about Bitcoin. You also have um,
Actually,
people
sorry to
like,
interrupt. I
yeah,
just watched one that Michael Saylor retweeted this week, but I don't remember the name, but it was really cool. I
yeah,
don't remember. Yeah.
yeah. So if you just subscribe to Tuttle Twins, Tuttle twins on YouTube, you'll find those little cartoon
Okay.
videos, just 2 or 3 minutes long, and aimed at really, really young kids as well. So there is so much being done. The way it worked for me, Lauren was 9, and I just started the podcast, and it was kind of like exciting in the family. What do you mean you're going to start a podcast? You're going to record yourself, and what do you mean you're talking to people from all over the world? And so there was this kind of, because I'd never done anything like that before.
Me
Again,
neither.
self-taught, right? Like you, completely self-taught. Uh, and she said, "Can I come in and ask a question?" I'm like, that's actually a great idea. Of course you can. So she came in and we were sitting down. That particular interview was with Andrew Edstrom, who's the author of Why Buy Bitcoin.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's what kicked it all off. And she's been asking questions on every show pretty much ever since. So she's met everybody as well,
That's so
via
cool.
via the podcast. And every now and then, my son might come on and ask a question. If I tell him, "Oh, I've got a footballer who's going to come on and talk about Bitcoin," or a baseball player, or a racing driver, he's like, "Whoa, yeah, I want to come and ask them about a Bitcoin." So,
That's so
uh,
cool.
yeah, and
And no,
we
sorry, go.
no problem, because I have kids of different ages. So my oldest is almost 18 and thinking about, what do I do now? Do I go to university? Do I go and try and travel for a year and take a gap year? Do I do voluntary work? Do I try and find an internship? So coming to Miami with me is my 18-year-old and my twin 12-year-olds now. So Lauren, who asks a question on each show, and Samuel, her brother, and Caitlin and Lauren are going to be working for the full 3 days at the conference, helping
That's so
Saifuddin
cool.
Amus selling
Wow.
selling his new book. So they're going to be with Saif all day.
Principles of economics, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
So he's there to promote that book, but obviously he'll have all of his books there to sell and to sign. And that's inspired my daughter, who's 18, to have at least read the Fiat Standard by the time she meets Saifuddin, and gets to can get in his head a little bit. And that was a deliberate uh, ploy of mine to try and put her in front of the right people who are going to be able to inspire her and hopefully get her thinking differently about mainstream economics and how money works, and what Austrian economic theory is and what Bitcoin is. So that is the way that I'm trying to educate all of my kids. exposure to the tools that are out there that are being made by other Bitcoiners, exposure to the actual people, whether that's via a Zoom call, on the podcast, or meeting in person at conferences, because I try and take all the family to as many conferences as I can. And my latest idea is to try and get them interning or doing some kind of work at the conferences directly for Bitcoiners. So
That's cool.
the idea being the education just happens naturally, organically, rather than it being forced.
Cool. And maybe one advice for, for parents, because, I understand your perspective because you know all of them, but many parents won't know many of Bitcoiners, especially the ones that, even my sister, that she is like really orange pill, they don't know that many Bitcoiners. So what advice will you give to parents who are, starting incorporating Bitcoin into the children's education, especially like if they want to, I don't know, forecast in terms of fostering curiosity and critical thinking around Bitcoin? What advice will you give to them?
Yeah, being a Bitcoiner can be pretty lonely.
Yeah.
Being a Bitcoiner and a homeschooler can be double lonely.
Okay.
Because you've outcast yourself from two of the most mainstream systems out there, right? As soon as you challenge the financial system to somebody and say, yo, this is broken and your money's not safe, they shut down. And as soon as you challenge the education system, just by your actions of taking your children out of the education system, you put a big red flag up on your families, like, ooh, bunch of weirdos. All right. Let's discount anything they have to say. So it can be difficult. It really can. To be, because you don't want to be that island. You don't want to be the only people influencing your children, right? You want them to be exposed to mentors and other kids from all different walks of life, from all different ages as well, which is something that doesn't happen at school. At school, you get literally put in a boxed classroom with 20 to 30 other kids by force. You don't get to choose your friends. Those friends are formed out of necessity rather than organically occurring. So how do you build that social layer? And this is something that is very close to my heart because of both of these camps that I've lived in for so long. And especially if you're world schooling, yeah, that can be very lonely. But there are a lot of world schooling groups now on Facebook or Telegram or what Instagram, social media platform of choice. You can find each other and you can find people in different cities when you turn up, and you can make friends and you can arrange educational activities for the kids to get to meet each other and hang out. With Bitcoin, there is an app now called Orange Pill app, which I was lucky enough to be invited to sit on the board and help advise Matteo, the founder, and build that out. And it's such a great tool for Bitcoiners who are lonely, perhaps like your sister, for example, a great example. Maybe she doesn't know many other Bitcoiners in real life. The real travesty is maybe she doesn't know she's surrounded by at least another 10 Bitcoiners within her hometown. And they just don't know that each other are there, because on Twitter, it could be, you might not even be following them. There's nothing flagging to you that, hey, someone lives within 50 miles of your radius. And perhaps if you chat them, they would jump at the idea of coming to meet you for a coffee or whatever. So I would urge people to download and join Orange Pill app, and then just see what happens. And it's $2.99 per month to join, because you want there to be some cost to join.
Free for
Because
Salvadorians, by the way.
it is. You're right. It is free. Yes.
Yeah. So guys, go ahead. No, because I interviewed Mateo and he told me, I was like, really?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
really cool.
That was one of the things he wanted to put in there for sure. And yeah, that's the way to find people. And once you find those people that you have an instant connection with, um, exposing those people to your kids or exposing your kids to those people is huge. And that could literally be just taking them along for the coffee. They might sit there pretending to be bored, but they're listening all of the time. And just organically, they're going to start seeing how you behave differently, how you're engaged in the conversation, where the conversation is going. They're going to grow more respect for you and instantly respect the person you've just met. And this is how we build our new circle of friends and our new network. Because if you're moving from one financial network to a different financial network, you're going to be meeting new people all the time. So you're redefining your life. You're literally redefining your life. And you better hurry up and redefine that life with the people that are on this new financial network, because that's where it really blossoms. That's where the magic happens. That's where you can start thinking laterally, protecting your family, finding better opportunities for work, adding value where you really want to add value. And yeah, it's probably not spoken about enough. This idea of the social layer of Bitcoin. So it's so important, and I would love to be able to get out to Bitcoin Beach one day. That's why I'm wearing the t-shirt.
I love
Shout
your
out
t-shirt.
to shout out to Mike Peterson and Chimbera, who I got to meet in person in Biarritz last year at the conference, who handed me this gift. And we've yet to visit El Salvador, but I can't wait to get out there one day, and I will land and I will open Orange Pill app, and I'll be able to find all of the other Bitcoiners. And they'll be able to go and then introduce me to the local places where they can spend Bitcoin, and we can support those businesses as tourists. Yeah, it's great. It's just an amazing time to be alive and watch all of this play out.
Absolutely. Now that you mentioned Mike and Chambera, I invite them to the show. But we couldn't manage yet to have the time because I know they're working like a lot. But
Yeah.
I'm really excited to bring them to the show. And talking about friends, I just saw this week that you're invited, or you're advisor right now in the
Mhm.
company of one of my friends, that is Julian Liniger, and also Lena.
Yeah.
So congratulations about that. So.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
what will you do there? Maybe you can talk something that I
Sure.
don't.
So Relay, yeah, who are Relay? RELAI .ch is the website, or if you want to find the app, um, that's just any app store. You can just go and download it, and they are a way to buy Bitcoin very, very quickly, and with almost no or very minimal KYC. You can literally download the app from anywhere in Europe, pretty much, I'm sure, anywhere in Europe, and start buying Bitcoin directly with your usual form of method of payment. So whether you use your ATM card or your Google Pay or your Apple Pay or whatever, you can literally start buying Bitcoin. So that's why I say it's low KYC, because you're still using a card that's attached to your bank account. So there is some there, but they don't ask for any identification. And you can do that up to 1,000 Swiss per day, which give or take anywhere between 850 and 1,000 euros. I don't know the exact exchange rate right now. I think they're pretty close. I'm not sure. And they have been supporting my podcast for 2 years at least.
Oh, cool.
From the first time I had Julian on, when they launched, I said, "Yo, come on the pod. Let's figure out who you are, what you're doing, what you're building." And I started DCAing with them and testing their service and giving feedback. We've stayed in touch ever since. Julian has been on the show many times. Got to meet him in person a couple of times as well, and in the conferences. And
Cool.
they were lucky enough to complete a funding round. Jeff Booth, Andy and Nico at Ego Death saw what I saw as well. That they're in a great position here in Europe to to really push forward the adoption of Bitcoin and orange pill lots of people on this continent. So they've got that funding in place, and with that funding in place, they've invited a few advisors to the board just to have a monthly call. What's going on? What can we do better? What are you hearing? Who can you connect us to? And on that board is myself, Lena Saike, who makes the beautiful little plushies, and also Joe Nakamoto, who's making some brilliant content, and Gigi,
Gigi. True. Yeah. All amazing Bitcoiners.
Amazing Bitcoiners. And first call today in about an hour, I think. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And I just saw that, when I texted you, actually I texted you because you were in Andorra, and I thought that I didn't know where you were based at. I didn't know that we were so close.
Yeah.
But you went to a meetup in Andorra. So maybe what are they're planning? What is the current development right there? Are they trying to do the same thing that El Salvador? That will be great. They are small. They have lower taxes. So
yes, they do, and they would love to. They would love to. So there's a bunch of Bitcoiners there, and a very good friend of mine, Thibaut, and his now fiance. Congratulations, guys. They moved from France. Yeah, they moved from France to Andorra. And we already had some very good mutual friends that had already made that move from Paris to Andorra as well. So they decided to start throwing a meetup. And I saw the meetup advertised on Orange Pill app. That's another thing about Orange Pill app, because the events tab is now live. So if you just hit on events, you can see where are your closest events and what dates and where it is. So I was just playing around on Orange Pill app and like, Andorra? And for me, it's a 5.5 hour drive. So I got hold of Tib and I said, okay, we'll come to the next one. When is it going to be? And he said, well, we'll make it when you can, come. So we sorted it out, and we had about 15 people come to the meetup and attend, including one walk-in from the tax office.
All right.
Who saw one of his friends walking into the bar and just said, hey, you going for a drink? He's like, yeah, I'm going to this Bitcoin meetup. Do you want to come? He's like, yeah, sure. So he walked into the Lion's Den as we were all discussing how CBDCs are destined to, all of the things. But he was very interested to learn more and very open to suggestions. And he already said he wanted to come back to the next Bitcoin meetup. And we said, well, okay, before you come, make sure you read the Bitcoin Standard. That's your homework before you come for the next meetup. But I do know that a couple of guys there have had some contact with the it's not even a government. I'm not exactly sure how it works in Andorra, but let's just call it the government for the sake of argument. They have had some contact, and like you said, they are they're a little bit more self-sovereign than the nations that surround them. But they're not self-sovereign when it comes to food or power or water, I don't think. But they could become. They really could lead like the revolution here, couldn't they? If they were to so the way the Madeira did it is interesting, because Madeira are not doing what El Salvador did. El Salvador made it legal tender, which is questionable behavior, because that's a decree, that's a law. And if you have the power over legal tender rights, you have the power over what people can and cannot do, and you're taking away praxeological side of human action and money being discovered from the base up. Madeira are not taking that approach. They cannot take that approach because they come under the European Union. But they're taking the approach of the government are happy to fund and advertise and help Bitcoin education for their citizenry. And that's the best thing you could do. And if Andorra do the same kind of thing, if they say to this meetup group, for example, right, here is a dedicated space for you guys to set up a dedicated office, walk in to dispense as much Bitcoin education to locals and even tourists that you possibly can, that would be huge. That's the kind of movement that we need, and we could do that without the support of the government, but with the support of the government, with a politician who's interested to learn and keen to learn and actually wants to make some kind of legacy, positive legacy. This is about the best approach anybody could take. So let's keep our fingers crossed that more people wake up to that.
And what is your economics perspective now that we're talking here on Europe, especially, you know, that they are trying to make a CBDC also like in the United States, but and they want to make something like the same system reward that it's happening in China, right? The social, I don't know, what's the name?
Credit, social credit system. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are your thoughts on that? And maybe if we can add if the bricks are the same thing, because basically, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on
that? Yeah. This is this is not a drill, right? This is not an exercise. This is something everybody needs to be awake to and think critically about. And these conversations that I've had, they can go off in all kinds of different directions. But the underlying point here is that the CBDC, the central bank digital coin, is coming in one way, shape, or form. It's coming. Whether they roll it out just as an interbank payments network first and then trickle it down into retail, who knows? Really, who knows? Whether they use it as a way for you to claim your social security payments, and that's the carrot that they're going to dangle for people to enter into their central bank digital currency scheme. Again, who knows? That they could do both of those very easily. Do they have the technical ability to do it? Yes, of course, because they can hire whoever they want. They can hire the best developers, the best technicians, the best financiers that money could buy from anywhere to get this put in place. Do they know? This is where it gets tricky. Do they truly know the damage that this would do to humanity? Because you can get very dark there. And if you look at how the current financial system was put in place with the central banks around the world, and especially the Federal Reserve in the US, how that was put in place in secret in the initial meetings, I think, were 1910, 1911 in Jekyll Island in the US. And by 1913, they had the Federal Reserve Act signed into power. Over Christmas week, at the end of 1913, where pretty much half of Congress was on holiday, that's how they got it through. Like, these people will stop at nothing to get what they want when it comes to controlling the money. So if you work on that narrative, on that historical view, they're going to stop at nothing to put a CBDC in place. So what are you going to do as a citizen? What are you going to do? Are you going to fight that and just keep your euros or your pounds, which they will inflate to zero value and force you on to the CBDC? Or are you going to seriously start thinking about putting some of your wealth into Bitcoin, which they cannot inflate, which they cannot control, which you will have complete self-sovereign power over if you self-custody it? So these are the kind of conversations you need to be having with your friends, your family, yourself, more importantly, and really digging into what's going on in the financial world at the moment. Because Christine Lagarde, she has made no secret of the fact the CBDC is coming.
Yeah.
She is not to be trusted.
Absolutely.
She was already found guilty once in the court of law for aiding and abetting. She was found guilty of negligence,
the IMF.
aiding and abetting the embezzlement of 400 million euros to one of Nicolas Sarkozy's aides, whilst she was the head of the IMF. She was found guilty for this. Found guilty. She didn't face any penalties, and she didn't face any charges, and she did not go to jail. Instead, she didn't work at the IMF anymore. She became the head of the ECB. There's no way in the world a deal wasn't cut between the people that wanted her to head the ECB, who had the power to keep her out of jail. Like, that's not conspiracy theory bullshit. That's like basic, obvious stuff. So there's an agenda. They want the CBDC, and they want it as quickly as possible. The UK have talked about their own CBDC. They're going to call it Britcoin, which is just the absolute worst. I hope they rebrand. Well, I hope they just don't bring it out at all. But that's what's going on for anybody that's listening. Do not take this lightly. Please start educating yourself about Bitcoin.
Yeah. I'm really conscious about the time, and I think we're going to start to wrap it up. But I have so many questions, and maybe I will have to
fire away. I've got some time. So
all right. But yeah, so no, I was thinking that I don't remember if it was the time that he was going to be elected. I'm talking about Rishi Sunak, the prime minister. Actually, he made a video talking about the benefits of CBDC. Do you see that? Probably you saw it.
Yep.
And but I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous how they promote that, because there are no fundaments, and of course, I don't know how desperate maybe they are to sell this thing to people. But
and they can do it very easily because they have all of the levers to pull whenever they need to. They can create a crisis whenever they need to. Then they can create an answer to that crisis whenever they need to. And they have the mainstream media, so it'd be very easy for them to trick people into thinking the CBDC is the Great Reset, the answer to all of our problems. They can engineer a financial crisis. You lose half of your savings. Then the news in the headlines is this is due to Bitcoin and cyber attacks, and make Bitcoin look like the bad guys, and cyber attacks look like we need more control by the government for your safety. And we have the CBDC now. We've been working on this. We were ready. Don't worry. We're going to roll this out, and we will replace all of the money that you thought you'd lost, but it will just be on the CBDC now. So just download this app and put in your details and link it to your bank account, and we will empty your bank account of pounds because we're not going to use them anymore, and we'll put everything onto your CBDC account at the original amount of pounds that you had in your bank account. And we've also we've made it legal tender. So all shops and services now are forced to accept the CBDC. And don't worry, we can just claim the taxes that we know you owe at the end of each month on your CBDC. So you don't need to file a tax report at the end of the year. all of these things to make it sound convenient to you, at the same time making you feel protected.
Mm-hmm. But no, yeah.
It's coming. Honestly, it's coming, and it's a fight. I really don't think we can win. It's just you just have to exit that system. That's the way you win, just by not playing. Do not play in a game where the rules have been written that you will never ever win.
Yeah, and have you seen that even they don't have it, they don't hide it anymore. Have you seen the recent tweet that I saw it on the Bitcoin magazine? The U.S. Congressman Brad Sherman said that
Yep.
actually admitted that they are printing money out of thin air, So
yeah,
how desperate that they are. I mean, and actually we're seeing it. And here's when things get out, because banks are failing in the US, but they're failing, one, because they're provoking failing ones that are related to cryptos to make it fails, and the other are making failing because actually they print that much money that they basically they don't have basis anymore. So I don't know, the future is it's really hard. And
that's how they can control the narrative, because we've had 3 banks fail in
1 month, 2 months,
6 to 8 weeks or something in the USA, and I think a fourth was on the edge of failing, Pac West. No one's talking about it. No one's talking about it because it's not in the news. If you go to like Yahoo Finance or anything like that, nothing, absolutely nothing. Whereas if you remember back in 2008, things were, September 2008 was when it started going crazy, and all of the news, meltdown, oh my God, now another bank. But that had all been, everything leading up to that point had all been going on in the background. It wasn't until they hit the go button that it hits the mainstream narrative. Then the markets collapse. Then retail, i.e., individuals holding stocks and shares, families, they sell all of their stocks and shares. And then within a few months, all of the banks are rescued, save 2 or 3 that just get bought up by the other banks anyway.
Yeah.
Then the people in the know, who know that the money printing is just about to start, people like Warren Buffett, for example, he buys huge amounts of stocks and shares in banks and says, I'm here as a white knight, as a savior to help prop up some of these banks. A few days later, they start printing, God knows how many billions of dollars into the economy, which goes straight into the recovery period of the stock markets. So they can crash the stock market whenever they want, just by the narratives and the headlines, which they will do. And then they can just start printing whenever they want. And those privileged few that know when or the plan of how they're going to do that will be nicely positioned to make an absolute killing off it. Absolutely. Like I said, stop playing these games. Get out of it. Don't play the game. Just buy Bitcoin each week and self-custody it.
Absolutely, that's true. Yeah.
Sorry, that was just the US. In Europe here, Credit Suisse.
Yeah, that's true.
Credit Suisse do not exist anymore, guys. They're gone. True. Like one of Europe's largest, longest standing banks, with God knows how many years of history behind it, gone in a weekend. Gone. And it was unconstitutionally bought out by UBS over a weekend, illegally, which nobody is challenging, in Switzerland, the so-called most democratic nation in the world. This is happening under our noses. And because it's not in the newspapers, people aren't paying attention, because they don't want them to pay attention yet. they have to get all of their ducks in a row before, bam, it hits the newspapers. And then the real panic starts. And they sit back and watch everybody panic and then just put their next part of the plan in action. And the next part of the plan, like we've been talking about, will most likely be CBDCs.
Absolutely.
For your safety.
I was talking about that when that happened with Natalie Smolensky, because actually she made an article in Forbes talking about how the U.S. government are picking the winners. Actually, she said that they are actually picking the banks that they want to save deliberately, right? So, and one of the things that I was talking to her is that and I want to know also your opinion, but I asked her if it was because the people, the politicians, the policymakers that are making the rules, the regulations that they are making is because they don't have education about Bitcoin, or they don't want to be educated, or as you mentioned, like that they are playing the game, so they're trying to restructure, right? But what we talk is, and what she said is that, yeah, of course, one is that they don't have enough education, but they are also making it like deliberate, like, okay, we're going to save this bank, because maybe we have something, a role for this bank. So
yep. Oh yeah, they put the banks in the positions and the people in the positions at the banks that they need to maintain control over the global monetary system.
But also, sorry, no, go ahead.
I was going to say there are a few books. If anybody wants to dig into some books, The Tower of Basel is a very interesting book which delves into the Bank of International Settlements, which is the big boss, right? The bank of all banks, which was formed back in the 30s, I believe, if I remember, if I'm getting my dates and my history correct. Yeah, by the head of the Bundesbank, I think it is Hermann Schacht and Montague Norman, who was the head of the Bank of England, and some other central bankers from around the world. Came this idea of the Bank of International Settlements, where everything must pass through. And it has complete diplomatic immunity. And it's based in Basel, in Switzerland. So read that book. And then the other book to read about what I was talking about earlier, the formation of the Federal Reserve, I would recommend this book, The Secrets of the Federal Reserve.
Okay, cool.
By Eustace Mullins. Those two books, they will get you up to speed pretty quickly on what you've been living under and how it works and the kind of minds that have been behind all of this and where it might go. So, yeah, get into those.
Okay, perfect. I just forgot what I was going to say before, but never mind. If I remember, I'm going to text you because I know my mind and I won't remember right now.
No problem.
So yeah, I think we're going to start wrapping up. So, which conference are you going this year? I know that you're going to Miami and also you're bringing your children.
Yep.
But any other conference that you want to go? Are you
planning to go? Prague. We're off to Prague in June. Cool. So we're looking very much forward to that. Do you have discount codes to offer to your listeners? If they
no, I don't have them. No.
Well, if they would like a 10% discount, if they're interested in checking out one of the conferences, then they could use the code Bitten. That would get 10% off. That's BITTEN. Yep. And that will get you 10% off the entry price. The one in Miami, I think, is it's very expensive for Europeans to get to. Maybe easier for El Salvadorans. I don't know, because you're closer. But even the entry ticket to the event has become very expensive. Mm-hmm. The one in Prague is a lot cheaper comparatively. And if you can get across to Prague on a cheap European low budget airline, then go for it. What I would
Or
say
trains.
actually is, or trains, exactly, or drive it.
Or drive it, yeah.
What I would say, and this comes back to what we were talking about with Orange Pill app and the social layer of Bitcoin. If you find that the tickets are too expensive to go to the conference, don't go to the conference, but go to the town, go to Prague. One, you might just score a free ticket because you might meet a pleb and he might have an extra one and you get to go in anyway. But two, you're going to a place where there's going to be thousands of Bitcoiners and there's going to be tons of side events, which will all be, you can find the side events on Orange Pill app now. Even if you go in Miami, it's like toxic happy hour party is happening here. The secret party is happening here. Meet us in a bar here. So you could get there, literally open the app and figure out, there's a bunch of Bitcoiners meeting for coffee at 10. Then there's a lunch at 12. Then there's afternoon drinks or an afternoon walk at 2. And then there's drinks at 5. You have a full day. You've not paid for the entrance fee to the conference, but you're meeting your people. It's so powerful. So I urge anybody to consider using that as a hack to meet some Bitcoiners. Then towards the end of the year, we're going to be going to Riga. That's the honey badger, the Baltic honey badger. Riga's in Latvia. So that's a great place. Yeah, it's very, very cool. That's put on by Hodl Hodl. Mm-hmm. And also, we're back to Prague in October, and we're doing all of this as a family. Oh, I missed Biarritz. Biarritz in August.
Okay.
And I missed July. Goodness me. Okay, so July in the United Kingdom, in just outside of Bristol. So you can fly into Bristol from a lot of European destinations, and that's at the Avon Adventure Valley Park. And that is definitely bring the kids, because you can camp there and it's a huge park full of animals and rides and slides and stuff like that. So the kids, they go off, they run off and do their thing, and you listen to Bitcoin talks. It's great.
That's so cool.
And and you can pay for your tickets in Bitcoin, and you buy your beers via Lightning Network. So that's that's 22nd, 23rd July. Then 23rd, 25th of August is Biarritz in France, the most amazing venue. It's right in the casino, right on the beach. So again, bring the family. They can hang on the beach all day whilst you do the conference thing. There's French and English stages. So if you don't speak French, you're fine. If you speak English, you can get along and listen to those. And then September is in Latvia. October is back in Prague for the Free Cities Foundation, who are putting on the Parallel Structures conference, which is great. That's not purely Bitcoin. You will meet people from all walks of life doing things outside of this system, whether that's education, health, money, living in communities. It's really interesting and one worth looking at as well. November, I think you've got El Salvador, right?
November 7th, yeah. We have Adopting Bitcoin.
Adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador.
You should go.
Yeah,
you should go.
I'd love to get there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm planning to go.
So now, if anybody's looking to live that nomadic lifestyle and go traveling,
they should
go
follow
the Bitcoin conference scene.
Yeah.
And I would recommend, don't even buy your tickets, just hang out at the side events and score those free tickets as you arrive, because plebs are plebs and they're going to help you out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I was talking in my last episode, I was talking with DJ Valerie, and she also will be playing in there. By the way, you're going to Miami. She's going to play at the Bitcoin conference after party with I forgot the name of this guy. With Morgan Page. Yeah. So yeah, they're going to be cool. in the after party. But yeah, guys, you should go to any meetups. And actually, I just met. Well, I haven't been there, but I just figured that it's also a meetup here in Barcelona, and the guys already invited me to go there. So I want to go. Maybe this month I could go, and it will be nice if you come any month here to the meetup. Because I want
for sure.
I want to
list it on Orange Pill app. Let's get some more plebs down there.
Absolutely, yeah, I will. I actually will going to tell Mateo too. Will be nice. And okay, so Daniel, I think we'll make another episode, because if not, we're going to be here for 2 hours. Thank you thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. It was a really pleasure to finally meet you. And come to Barcelona anytime. You have a home here.
Thank you. Well,
and go to El Salvador.
Yes, but thank you for doing what you're doing. Right, we need more people. I say this a lot for anybody that's sitting there thinking, how do I add value to the Bitcoin space? How do I give back? Just start. It doesn't matter. If you want to write something, if you want to start a YouTube video, if you want to start a podcast, if you want to sing a song, if you want to dance a dance, just do you. It doesn't matter what you do. The Bitcoiners, the plebs, they will find you. If you put yourself out there, they will support you. And it's all about education. So thank you for stepping up and stepping out of your comfort zone to put yourself out on YouTube and to do all of this educational project. Is well done. Thank you.
Thanks to you. Thanks for your words. And yeah, I mean, also now that you mentioned that, I started this because I saw that there are not many Salvadorans doing this, and but actually 2 weeks ago or last week, I don't remember, there was another guys that are starting another podcast, and I want to shout out them that I think they are called El Salvador podcast. Let me check, because they text me. And I also want to support them, because it's never enough education.
No,
it's never enough. And I think it's a really good project in El Salvador. Bitcoin Podcast El Salvador. That's the name.
Bitcoin Podcast El Salvador. Right. Okay. Yep. That's it. And you have Me Prima Bitcoin as well, right? Which the guys put together.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So yeah. So I just want to bring in the podcast. I want to bring everybody. You, Natalie, Smolensky, Julian, but also people that are making small projects. I also interview also people that are in South America, working with a small community. So that's the main thing. That there's a space for everybody, and they're working with Bitcoin. I think that's the main thing, right? That Bitcoin is giving you the chance to do the things that probably in the current fiat system you're not able to do, because you don't have the money, you don't have the financial services, you don't have the education, and Bitcoin are giving that. So yeah.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to you. See you next week, guys. Ciao. Hello, guys. Thank you so much for watching the show. I'm currently editing the next episode. I just came by to tell you that thank you so much for watching it. And if you like it, don't forget to share it with your friends, your family, your neighbors, people that are not currently Orange Pill yet, not Bitcoiners, because, that's the main purpose, right? To continue educating people about Bitcoin. And yeah, if you want to support the show, there are 2 ways that you can do it. You'll find 2 QR codes over here. The first one, it's actually both are Lightning address. The first one is from Geyser Fund. Actually, if you want to read the entire project, you'll find the link on the description box over here. And yeah, you will find the entire project of Bitcoiner. So yeah, there's a way. This is a way that you can support the show. And but if you want more proof of work, just click on the channel. You'll see the entire interviews. And the other one is Lightning address. So please send me a lot of Bitcoins and Satoshis, because I want to keep doing what I love. And for me, it's an honor to contribute to my country, to my homeland, El Salvador. And actually, to be the first Salvadoran Bitcoin podcast, it's an honor for me. And I want, as I said, I want to keep doing what I love, and so that's why your support is really important. And last but not least, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, to like, and even if you want to leave me a comment. You know, I don't like to say those things, but that's how YouTube algorithm works, so I had to say it. So yeah, that's it. And yeah, I will continue to, you know, I have to finish editing the next episode. So yeah, see you next week, and I wish you a wonderful day. Ciao, ciao, bye. Salud.